Hello everyone, my name is Lanso90 and welcome to Let's Play Kerbal Space Program, the start of a new little series here. I had stopped the last one for a number of different reasons, but primarily the new update came out, which added a lot of changes. It added the funding and everything that we tried with that first series where we did it through a mod, but now it's part of the official game now. So that being said, even though that's been added in, I was really thinking about trying to make a series with the new features, the funding and everything. But played it, and I actually did start recording a series for it. I was going to do something that was like the United States versus Russia, since the funding would really help play that out. But the issue was I really don't like how they have contracts being handled right now. I mean, hopefully they'll change it in the future, but it doesn't seem like they're going to. But it makes these random altitude and speed parameters to do a certain thing within. And the problem is they can be not functional. Like, you can't... let me try to think of an example. I don't know, it'll just be like, be moving at 700 meters per second, 1,000 miles up. Well, that's way too fast. You can't really hit that kind of speed. And if you tried to fill out these requirements, you'd be wasting delta V and everything to get into space. So I don't think it's exactly useful. It becomes a little bit easier once you achieve orbit and things, because then once you're in orbit, the parameters are really a lot easier to make. It's just the in-atmosphere stuff is really difficult. And besides, like we talked about before with the mod, that mod didn't really change anything, because I'm a good enough player that's not going to restrict me enough. And so that means we're going to do this science option, which is like how it used to be. And okay, so I've been trying to think of what to do, and I keep mentioning them in passing in each of my little games I play and stuff, where I can customize who I am and stuff. But I'm going to use my flag for my fantasy nation type of thing. And we're going to actually do a bit of roleplay as them, I suppose. To try to make things a little bit more interesting than just, default Kerbal Space Program stuff that you guys have seen a million times. So we'll call this the Lightfire Union Exploration Division. Let's start. Okay, let's pull some of these windows out of the way from different mods and things. Okay, so one thing I'm going to have to do, and it's a little bit unfortunate because it's going to be some more work for me and stuff, but like I've talked about before, I really don't like how this game starts you with manned technology, because we didn't go into space with manned stuff first. We went into space with probes and things first. Just ain't right. So there is a mod that I was thinking of using for this, called Better Than Starting Manned, but apparently has like really bad and like compatibility with the new version, and it's still not 100% laid out like I'm hoping. So what I'm gonna have to do here is I'm gonna have to exit out and edit the save file to give me a bunch of science points so we can fill out the tree. It's not to cheat, it's just so I have options and I can put standard space probes into space and stuff. We'll see, I'll show you. But so yeah, I'm gonna cut it here and I'm gonna go do that. Okay, I am back. So let's spin this science really quick. And the reason we just don't do Sandbox for this kind of thing is I still want to be able to go get science, because I think it's pretty fun to collect science and everything. But when you're in the sandbox mode, you just can't do it at all. It disables it from your options. This music sounds way too loud to me, but I think that's always the case. Maybe it's just my headset's turned up too high. I'll turn my headset down. I know a couple of you have said that my videos have the music turned down too low. And I do that because if you leave them on the default settings to the games to record, it'll always be too loud. You have to turn it down a little bit. I'm just not exactly sure how much I need to do. Remote Tech is under construction again, which is good for them. I still don't really plan to use it as it's intended to be. I tend to just, I just like the look of the radar dishes and stuff, so probably, depending on what kind of changes might have to be made, I might update my version of it. If you guys want it, I'll put it in the description. Because basically, what was that? The game paused for a second. Basically, the mod doesn't work. There's like no easy way to just delete certain files to make it parts only. You have to combine separate text files together and stuff in a certain way to make it work. I think that's all we basically need, because I don't really need these two things. So we'll leave it at that. And let's get started. So as far as the role-playing I was talking about, we're going to pretend like we're the Lightfire Union. And I'll probably explain like their kind of thought processes and stuff as we go. But how we're going to start is we're going to start as if it's the end of their, or it's getting close to the end of their last war before they gain control of their entire planet. A war which they win by creating intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs. So that's what we'll be building here. Although it's actually going to be a little bit big, because I don't have a... Okay, this one is a little bit smaller. We'll use it. I was hoping that there was a smaller version of this. I can probably make that myself, actually. I might do that eventually. Although perhaps this is the right size. I don't know. But, yeah, so this is actually going to be a missile, not a probe. The idea is that it's a missile. We'll have to give it some power. Or battery, that is. Oops. Just don't need an expanded fairing. Very, very small. Although I suppose we should stick something on this to make it look like it has a... Make it as if it has a payload. I guess I could put the little nuclear thing on it. That would kind of make sense, right? If I can find it, I can never find the freaking thing. There it is. Okay. Kind of oddly shaped for a warhead, but whatever. Probably just gonna leave it in this cone. Probably not jettison those walls. I'm gonna stick a. I know it wouldn't actually have a heat shield, but I don't think there's a way to get it back into the atmosphere without exploding right now, without having it this way. It's a little bit hard to place it onto this thing. There it goes. Okay. Need a decoupler. Now, it's not going to be very big. I think it needs to be a little bit bigger than just a single or solid rocket fuel booster, though. So we'll go with like I can't tell what the size of these things are. Yeah, like this. Yeah. This is the engine we want. Still seems a bit too fancy for our first rocket. ICBM. I don't know if there's a simpler looking engine though. I guess the stock part might be. Stock part's a bit more dinky looking. Or I could put like this on it. A flat engine, that seems more advanced to me. Yeah, we'll do it like this. Well, it's not going to have any control. Then again, you don't want it to have a whole lot of control, but I think we at least need the 45 engine. It's a little bit smaller looking anyway, so. Aerodynamics. Feel those really small winglets. Oops, I don't have symmetry, or not symmetry, but angle snapping on. And then we'll attach these things. Then pull the whole thing down. Only one of these are actually going to split off. I think it's just this one, yeah. The rest of this probably is just kind of all in one thing that we're not going to use. What we call this, the I don't really have a creative name for the ICBM. Call it Terrace ICBM 1. So this thing isn't a scientifically driven endeavor, this first rocket. Just to destroy our enemy. Which isn't a specific thing on the map, I'm just going to launch it. It does need to at least reach the next continent over. Might be sending it west instead of east, I think. Unless I want to try to hit that one. It's kind of hard to see. I think we're going to send it west mainly just because I can see this one because it's daytime. That one's in the dark. Otherwise, I'd probably send it the other direction. But this does need to at least touch space for me to consider it a successful ICBM launch. Okay. Remember, I have the Ferram Areospace mod. I guess I haven't gone over all the mods I have, but it's pretty much the same stuff that my last playthroughs had. So I have Ferram Areospace, which makes aerodynamics more realistic. Realistic used in quotation marks, I should clarify. Because it's still not quite exactly right, as this jiggling around kind of indicates. Because there's no reason this thing shouldn't be aerodynamic, it pretty much is. It has a balanced weight ratio and everything as well. But yeah, the Ferram Aerospace means we kind of have to do the gravity turn really early, unlike how you normally would. Thing wobbles around as the Ferram. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. I wanted to make sure all these buttons were enabled. My toolbar thing. Probably going way too high. Oh no. Actually going pretty much exactly kind of how you should. Okay, now we're gonna cruise up to altitude and make the next burn in space. So I talked about this briefly in my History of Space Probe Science Hour video, but although we give the Russians credit for the first orbiting spacecraft, the Nazis were actually sort of technically first to space because a V2 reached space. It just didn't go into orbit, it wasn't a probe, it was just a missile. But all the same, missile was the first thing to go into space. This thing might actually get to orbit. I might have a little bit too much fuel in it, but that could be wrong. I think I actually need to reorient the craft to point that way a little bit. If our intent is to hit this continent. There we go. Oh, we're out of fuel. Let's detach. So the Lightfirian's final enemy is the Wolvend race. They are too fierce of ground combatants to fight traditionally, so the Lightfirians had to out-tech them, basically, and win through dropping warheads on them. Sort of World War II style. Then after they conquer them, though, the Lightfirians have sole control of the planet. They can focus their efforts outside the planet. And crash into these mountains over here. Can imagine maybe there's some kind of underground bunker over here. That we're about to nuke. So yeah, it was a good idea that I put the heat shield on it, even though I don't think bombs actually had heat shields, but I could be wrong. And imagine it would also serve as armor plating against any kind of missile defense system. Actually lost quite a bit of velocity. Imagine that was a much larger explosion, didn't you? Then you have the idea. Okay, there we go. Back to the space. So having nuked their enemies into submission, the Lightfirians gain control of the planet of Bredicea. And at that point, they have a booming missile industry that is no longer needed, and lots of people who are very well versed in aerospace technology and don't have anything they can do for the most part. So eyes turn towards the sky, and the missiles that were once used for war are now going to be used for exploration. I think it's a little bit too corny to use the Sputnik for the first actual probe, so I like to use this little square one instead. What will they equip it with? Some of the more basic technology. For one thing, it needs to have a battery, which I probably should have just left the other one on. But I like to use these little square ones, so they kind of go with the shape of this thing pretty well. They have all the world's resources as well, so they don't have to be too finicky about what they do with it. They also operate under a communist system, so the government can request any kind of parts that they need for the glory of space exploration. Okay, that'll pretty much be the probe, very basic. But as the test of the last rocket demonstrated, this wasn't enough to get it into space. So they have to consider some kind of new design. See, we used the 45 engine, I believe. Max thrust of 200. ISP of 320 and 370. Or 320 and 370. So we should stick a better engine on there. It's pretty much the same as this one. But this one is significantly more efficient. So we upgraded the primary engine. It doesn't have nearly as much thrust, but as we saw, we were going too fast anyway and they had to throttle back. So this one actually is more efficient in that sense. Do I add more fuel? Probably not. This might not be enough to get it into space. Again, this is their very first probe that they're sending up. I don't know what to expect to exactly get into orbit yet. And this time I think there's a few too many. Yeah, I don't need the heat shield anymore, that's right. Uh-oh. That's weird. That shouldn't have happened. It's not letting me click on things that I want to click on. Okay. I don't need these. I don't need the decoupler and the heat shield. I'll reduce some weight as well. Stick these back on. Okay, those are not on quite right, I don't think. Oh no, this is not quite right. Here we go. Alright. And then these two things have to be on separate stages, otherwise weird stuff happens. Or wait. I don't actually remember how the... Oh, you know what? This part falls away separately, so it's actually the other way around. These two should go first. There we go. Okay, that makes more sense now. And that should be everything. So at this point, now it's not the Terrace ICBM. It's the Terrace 2 carrying the... Oh, I don't remember what I named my first... Oh, I think it's Ors 1. Ors 1. Ors is like their word for orbital. And that should do it. I guess I'll save the design. Doesn't really matter. It's a little bit high, and that's fine. Let's launch. Probably not enough thrust now, but It's a lot more fuel efficient either way. So you can see you have all the beautification mods on, the one that has the volumetric clouds. There's also better atmospheres, which I think is like the clouds over there are part of that. The distant object enhancement, which doesn't just enhance objects from far away. It also dims them if you want to be able to see them otherwise. Like, since the planet is in the day side right now, we can't really see very well. We can't really see any stars or anything, which is realistic. I think that's part of that mod. Of course, FAR is fighting with us. I probably should keep that out somewhere. So yeah, kind of a gradual turn. But yeah, this time we didn't have any of that aerodynamic effect, the one that puts like the white atmosphere effect, I don't know what to call it, around the spacecraft. Which means we're not going too fast. When that happens, you're going too fast. Okay, 37 out. Put that up. Engine says it's starting to overheat, but it's not as bad as it portrays it to be. Just get a few extra 1,000 meters and then we'll stop. We have a third of a tank left, roughly a third of the tank. So I think that should be enough to get us into orbit. I could be wrong. But I mean, it's almost half full, right? So I imagine it must be nearly enough to get us into orbit, if not into orbit completely. And we could time accelerate a little bit. Spacecrafts are still light enough to be doing that safely. Okay, we're gonna need to throttle up here soon. Here we go. I might end up with like a perfect amount of fuel for this mission. If I wanted to be more efficient, I could wait till I get to the marker here, the apoapse, and then begin the burn again. Alright, so there we go. We are in orbit. Pulled it off. I should have put these antennas on a... oh, what are they called? Hot group? Something like that. There's a button. There's a thing you can do where you can just press like the one key and then all those will deploy. I always forget to do that, but I need to start doing it because it should just be something I'm doing. I should be doing it. But here we go. Now we have our version of Sputnik, the Oris 1. In fact, we will go to rename the vessel. Is a probe. The Terrace 2, though, is the rocket that brought it up. So now at this point, it's just Oris 1. And it's eventually going to run out of power because it's only operated by batteries, which was how Sputnik was, and a couple of other first space probes were like that. It's a little while before the U.S. got a solar-powered satellite up. which will probably be the next thing we do, because obviously this thing couldn't actually collect any science, which Sputnik didn't really do that either. It just transmitted radar pings back home, pretty much. They were able to gather some drag data about the launch and stuff. But yeah, that puts Oris 1 into orbit and marks the start of the Lightfire Union expansion into space. Now you can see the distant object enhancement working. There is a planet over there. Not exactly sure which one it is. I don't know what planet that is, actually. It's a little bit strange. So there's Eve. That looks like Duna. Could it be Jewel? It doesn't look very green. Maybe it is Jewel. Now there is Minmus. I guess it must be Jewel. It seems too bright for Britain, Drez or anything. And then the moon. The moon looks really nice now. I remember the last version of the mod, the moon looked really ugly because they gave it like way too much of an atmosphere. There we go. Oris 1 in space. That's pretty much the end of this episode. I'm not exactly 100% certain on that because I had to break it into two pieces, one really small piece and one big one. But pretty sure it's right. So hope you all enjoyed and have a good day.